deathless titans placed upon the face of the earth 3 generations of men. The first of them being men of gold. Becoming too close to gods themselves, Cronus ended their time on earth with an eternal sleep. The second generation came to be, the men of silver. Unwilling to serve the titans and make sacrifices upon the holy altars, as all men shall do, they were condemned to dwell under the earth for all eternity. Finally, a third generation, the men of bronze, a brazen race, sprung from the ash tree. Terrible and strong are they. Join me as I tell you the tales of the men of bronze. This is Dragon's Blood. Beware Brontes. Episode 27. A cock crowed loudly outside of Gandon's room, waking him. Throwing back the covers, he muttered to himself, "Too much wine. Again." Stumbling across the room, he opened the curtains of the window. The weak light of the morning revealed his traveling clothes in the chair, cleaned and mended. After slowly getting dressed, he found his boots, with new soles and iron caps over the toes. He slipped them on, stood up, and said to no one in particular, "These boots are comfortable." He left the room, yawning and stretching, and followed the scent of breakfast to the cookhouse. Going inside, he found Akum, Minkari, Mutal, and Mutalo eating and talking as they sat at one of the large tables. Going to the kitchen, he asked for fried eggs, salted pork, and bread. Heading for the table and taking a large tankard of water with him, drinking it as he made his way to the table. Gandon looked at them and said, "Too much wine last night." Elbows on the table, he sat pressing his palms against his temples. Everyone at the table laughed at Gandon's displeasure. Minkari piped up and said, "Lucky it's almost a full day's travel." Taking a bite of bread, he continued, "You'll be able to sleep it off." Gandon agreed with a grunt. A serving girl brought Gandon his breakfast with a fresh tankard of water. Sitting back, he croaked out a "thank you" and began devouring his food. Through a mouthful, he asked, "Anyone seen Sunisret?" Outside the entrance, loud, staggering footsteps could be heard. In stumbled Sunisret, still in his toga and boots from last night. Making his way slowly to the cook, he croaked, "I need food." With a laugh in his voice, the cook asked, "What do you need?" Swaying like a tree in a windstorm, where he stood, Sunisret answered, "6 fried eggs, leg of pork, and a loaf of bread." Eyeing large stoops of water on the table next to him, he made straight for them and downed 3 in quick succession. After a loud belch, Sunisret joined everyone at the table. Not being able to help themselves anymore, laughter broke out at Sunisret's expense. "Too much wine," was his response. The same serving girl brought the food. Regarding the 2 ragged revelers, she said with a smile, "You 2 make a pair, don't you now?" Sunisret devoured all the food brought to him, then asked, "Is there any wine? I got a bad headache." Akum said in a stern voice, "No wine for you, just water." Pointing to the exit, he continued, "Go get dressed. We have to leave soon." With a dejected look on his face, Sunisret relented. Mutala went with him to make sure he got dressed, rather than to go back to bed. Everyone met outside under an overcast sky that threatened to rain at any moment. A large covered wagon, drawn by 4 horses, stopped before them. Mutal leaned on his two canes and said, "Ah, yes. Here is your transport for the day. All your gear is loaded, and provisions for at least 3 days. Just in case. Mutalu knows the way. He has a map and an unerring sense of direction. I will send 4 men with fresh horses to wait at the halfway point for your return trip. You will know them by the black feathers they wear on their breastplates." Mutal took each man's hand in turn, wishing them luck. Hugging his boy, he said, "Be safe, son. I can't wait to see you home soon." Gandon and Akim climbed in first, followed by Kepri. Minkari said, "Since Sunisret, will you lift me up?" as he held out his arms. Placing him in the cargo box, Sunisret followed while complaining about his headache. Akim responded with, "Sleep it off. You've got all day. Same goes for you, Gandon. You boys should know better." They both grumbled in agreement. "And for Athena's sake, sleep on your stomach, Sunisret, so you don't snore." Piling the bags into a makeshift bed, Sunisret laid down with a grunt. The driver clambered down, and Mutalu took his place. "Here we go," announced Mutalu with a snap of the reins. They were off. Making their way through the forest, and just before the main road, Mutalu stopped the wagon and said, "Gotta make sure no one sees us come out of the forest." Jumping down from the wagon, he ran off to the edge of the tree line. After a minute, he ran back, positive there was no traffic. Taking the driver's seat, they were off again. Minkari struggled up to the front bench to talk and ask questions. They turned east and traveled 5 leagues. At the main junction of the road, they turned south for another 2 leagues. "Tell me, Mutalu, are you an only child?" "Yes, I am Papa's only son. Papa says that I did have 2 older brothers and a sister." "Oh my," exclaimed Minkari. I'm sorry. "It's okay. I never knew them. I was born many years later." What happened? Urged Minkari. "Papa says he was called to the king's court on business. When he returned, he found my brothers and sister and his first wife dead. Assassins broke into the house and killed everyone when they didn't find Papa. Such a tragedy, said Minkari in a mournful tone. That's when Papa began planning the compound from his second sight. Then Papa disappeared, just like that." Mutalu snapped his fingers. "Then Papa met Mama. Then I came along." "Where is your Mama now?" questioned Minkari, with concern in his voice. "Mama died when I was young." Mutalu thought for a moment. "I remember her. She was beautiful." "I'm glad you remember your mom. I'm glad." They rode on in silence. The further south they traveled, the warmer it got. The clouds darkened and the rain began to fall. "There's the lake," cried Mutalu. "This is where we go into the forest." Pulling the wagon off to the side of the highway, he and Minkari went into the cargo box. Gamden and Akim were awake, but Sunisret still lay on his stomach, sleeping. Unrolling a map across Sunisret's back, Mutalu traced their path from the compound to the lake. Still moving his fingers across the forested section, he said, "We go across here. This is the long part of the journey. The forest is thick, and there are rolling hills we have to cross." Mutalu stood up, gave his head a quick scratch, and finished by saying, "Hope we don't have to backtrack too much." "Where did your papa get this map from?" inquired Gamden. "Papa was showing this in his second sight this morning, and drew it up quick," said Mutalu as he pulled out his rain jacket. Climbing back onto the driver's seat, he finished with, "Better get going." Making sure that no one was coming, Mutalu spoke the word of the centaurs. The branches of the trees lifted and the brush laid down, making a path into the woodland. The journey was arduous, having to backtrack only once, but the wagon got stuck several times. What made the work even worse was the increasing heat and humidity. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Gamden asked, "How will we know when we are there? The forest is so dense. I can't see a thing." Minkari closed his eyes and focused his mind, his eyes darting left and right. Bringing up the memories from his library, he began. When the Titans ended the reign of the Men of Silver, most of them were killed off. The unfortunate ones were forced underground into their mines to suffer for all eternity. They still have the needs of mortals. They need to eat, but the gods salted the earth so nothing will grow for a league in every direction from the mouth of their lair. No animals will venture there. They can hunt at night, but sunlight pains them, so they rely on those unfortunate souls that get lost in the woods and end up in their territory. With a frown, Gamden asked, "Couldn't they hunt in the forest for their food?" Minkari continued, "No, the forest will not let them. The centaurs forbid it." The forest opened before them, revealing a desolate plain that stretched off into the distance. The black clouds above hung low, boiling and churning. Large raindrops fell straight down to the white salt-encrusted earth. Dead, gnarled trees littered the plain like giant scarecrows, forever vigilant, warning of the horrors within. The horses neighed and whinnied their displeasure of having to enter this land of death. Mutalu shouted over the roar of the falling rain, "The horses won't go any further. I'll climb down and see if they can be led on. Someone come up front and take the reins." Sunisret drew the short straw and took the driver's seat. Begrudgingly, the horses went on toward their destination. The closer they got to the terminus, the hotter it became. As the rain hit the ground, it turned to steam, creating a fog. Sunisret asked, "Why is it so hot here?" Minkari answered, "The Men of Silver were masters of mining. Their tunnels run everywhere under this land. Lots of coal. The Titans set it ablaze, one of their many eternal tortures." Before them, at the base of a hill, was a small entrance, waves of heat vomiting out. The arch above, made of human skulls, cemented in place. The trees in the vicinity with skulls nailed to them. The hill venting black smoke from hundreds of fissures. Whinnying and neighing, the horses stopped several yards from the entrance and refused to go any further. Gamden stripped down to his loincloth and said, "If it's this hot above ground, I can imagine what it's like in there." He slipped on a pair of leather sandals, then continued, "I want to be as quiet as possible. Get in and out before they know it." Rummaging through the gear that was provided, he found a bandolier, fastened it, short swords, and several daggers. Akim attached Mutal's invention to his back to help drag the women out. Minkari handed Gamden a small vial and said, "Quaff this, Gamden. Quaff it." "Is this a potion? You know I'm no good with potions." "No, it's a healing potion. Healing potion," Minkari said through a laugh. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he continued, "It will give you strength of body and focus the mind." Gamden drank the potion in one gulp, grimaced, and said, "Disgusting." "Here's the scroll for fire." Minkari handed it over. "Prime the spell by holding it and saying the word of power." Gamden unrolled the scroll, spoke the word. The painted rune on the parchment glowed bright blue, then disappeared. "Now all you have to do is speak the word again. Choose one target or many. Easy as that. Easy as that." Dropping a vial into a leather pouch, Minkari added, "Here is another healing potion. Take it with you, just in case." Holding out his hand, Minkari finished with, "Good luck, Gamden." "Thank you, Minkari. Thanks for everything," then shook his hand. They all jumped out of the wagon to find Sunisret pacing and Mutalu with a look of concern on his face. Akim took Gamden by the shoulders and said with a reassuring voice, "Stay calm. Take your time and think before you act. If you do, you will be fine." The healing potion was taking effect. Gamden's vision and hearing was becoming keen. His attention on Akim alone. "Now, go talk to Sunisret. I think he needs more reassuring than you right now." "Yes, I think you're right," answered Gamden, turning on his heel. "What's wrong, Sunisret?" "I should be going in there, not you." Sunisret stopped pacing, pointed to the entrance. "I should take the risk, not you." Gamden walked up to him and said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll come out looking good as always." Stripped down to his loincloth and boots from the heat, rain pouring down on him, Sunisret scooped Gamden up in a bear hug and ejaculated, "You better come out of there. You're my best friend. I can't lose you now." Pounding on his back, Gamden squeaked, "I can't breathe. Sunisret, I can't breathe." After Sunisret put him down, Gamden asked, "Okay, where's Kepri hiding?" Akim responded, "He's in the wagon and won't come out." Gamden walked over and sighed to himself as he said, "Come on, Kepri, we have to go in there." Kepri responded by folding his ears back and hissing, "Do as you're told. You're my familiar. Now come here." Growling, Kepri came out from under the bench with trepidation. taking his head in his hand, Gandalf spoke the word of power for sight. Both felt the magical energy pass between them. Picking Kepri up, he turned and made his way to the cave orifice. Placing his familiar on the ground, he said, "Be my eyes in the dark." As they stepped in, lightning forked across the sky, and thunder shook the earth. Look for episode 28 of Dragon's Blood, Beware Brontes, on YouTube.